All right, we got 30 seconds.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with our outstanding producer, Mr. Aaron Zommers, on the board. It is 6 past the hour of 12 noon on this Wednesday, May 12th, 2025. It is...
Hump Day!
The camel running a little late today, but he got here.
It happens.
But he got here. He got here. Very good. Mr. Zommers, how are you today? It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite on the 12th of March, 2025. It is Hump Day. It's sunny. We're downtown Madison at the old World Headquarters. How are you?
Doing all right. Still getting used to stupid daylight savings time.
I know,
It throws me all off, and I hate it. And I'm sure you do as well.
It's, here's the deal. I got in, and I come across town to get to work, and who beat me into the office today was Pat Kreitlow, who came from Chippewa Falls.
He did beat you here by like 10 minutes.
And a speedy driver, that Kreitlow. I was on his show this morning, and then he got down, and in fairness, I was home working on some stuff, because tonight we have this great forum that's going to be talking about the April 1st election for Supreme Court Justice and the implications. And it's being put on by Courier News Service and Up North News Radio, and they were kind enough, or desperate enough, to ask me to be one of the moderators for tonight, and I'm very honored to do so. More honored to be not on the panel, but a moderator with our friend and colleague, the founder of the Recombobulation Area, and also the political editor here at Civic Media, Dan Schaefer, is one of the moderators, along with the aforementioned Patrick Kreitlow. So he's good. And by the way, Pat's he's a busy guy. He's doing a meet and greet right now with some of his fans, but he'll be in here in the studio in a little while.
Well, if you can get past all of the screaming girls.
Exactly right. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then we expect at some point our old friend and ongoing contributor, Mr. Trygve Olsen, former Republican like myself, native of River Falls, a senior advisor with the Lincoln Project, and he'll check in on a Wednesday as well. So all that coming up. And of course, we have another edition of What's Worse coming up here today. Your chance to call in and vote on the important issues of the day.
This one stings a little.
Nicely done. This one does sting a little. So lots to get to on the show. I think we've talked about this on the show before. You're way too young. But CBS on Saturdays used to have a show back in the days called Hee Haw. And it was a spoof on country life, but it was also super funny and hugely popular for CBS back in the 70s into the early 80s.
Yeah, my mom watched it.
Thanks a lot, Gilligan. Another show you didn't watch, but
which my mom also watched.
Wow, Zommers is burning me today. But yeah, Hee Haw was a great show, and they had a segment on there, an ongoing segment called Samples Sales, where and this was real actually, because I watched a little thing last night on YouTube. Roy Clark was one of the big stars of Hee Haw, one of the co-hosts, and he was a legit musician. Really, really famous musician, country music guy, won a bunch of Grammys and country music awards, was a phenomenal virtuoso guitar player and guitar picker, along with being a singer. And so they interviewed Roy Clark late in his life before he passed away, of course. And Roy Clark was telling this story about Junior Samples. And he was a larger guy, always wore bib overhauls on. And they made up this fictitious car lot called Sample Sales. And he played this part of this kind of country bumpkin used car sales guy. And a lot of people would ask Roy Clark when he traveled around the country, is that real or is that just a bit? And Roy Clark told this great story, and I'll shorten it up, that Junior Samples was a guy who grew up in rural Georgia and was making moonshine, helping make moonshine in the hills of Georgia at 8.
Wow.
And by 12, Junior had his own moonshine business. And so he got arrested so many times that the last time that Junior Samples got arrested, the judge said, Junior, I'm not joking around. We arrest you again. We're putting you in the slammer and throwing away the key. So he stopped making moonshine and just started fishing, basically. Well, he told these great stories, as only a Southern boy could do. And one of them was about a big fish, a whopper. Well, this was recorded back in the day, probably on a cassette or something in somebody's basement. And one of the people that was going to be on Hee Haw heard this and brought it. They said, bring this guy in. Well, they put Junior Samples on TV and turned on the cameras, and that was it. They're like, this is what we're going for. And so he'd come out, and he'd have this sign that said, because back in the day, you had numbers and letters for a phone number, and it said BR549. And he'd come out, he'd kick whatever vehicle it was in, and he'd say, this is Junior Samples from Samples Used Car. And he was reading it off of cue cards. He was a terrible reader. But it made it all the funnier, right?
Right.
And you go, this Junior Samples is Samples Used Cars. Come on down. I got a 1971 Chevrolet. She is energy efficient and doesn't have any pollutants. And then some girl his assistant would say, Junior, that car doesn't have an engine. He'd say, shh, that's why it's a real price. I'll sell it to you for only $1,000, and for another $2,000, you can drive it off the lot. And people loved it, you understand? Well, I tell that story because Sample Sales has been reopened after all these years. And yesterday, on the lawn of the White House in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump was playing the part of Junior Samples, and he was selling Teslas. This part, I am not, well, none of it, everything I've said is true, but I'm not making this up. And so there you have the president of the United States. And look, Joe Biden did this before for Jeep, like when Jeep had an electric vehicle. The difference is Biden had just like, he would get in the car and drive it around the White House. I think Obama did this once when Jerry Seinfeld had his comedians in cars getting coffee. And then, of course, famously, when Ford rolled out their electric vehicle, Biden went to like the Arizona track, whatever, and got it up to like 100 miles an hour, and everybody loved it. The difference is yesterday, that Trump is there with Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla, and they have a variety of cars. And Elon sells, quote unquote, sells Trump a car. Trump gets in, has no idea how to run it, no idea. And the press is like, are you going to drive it like Biden did? And Trump says, you're the only one that saw that. And Trump could drive it. And he got out and then went through all the prices and how you order one and aren't they great? Well, then last night, and people thought it was kind of funny, but odd. Then last night on Anderson Cooper, the great reporter Maggie Haberman from the New York Times did great investigative work. Turns out Elon Musk paid Donald Trump $100 million. And unlike his almost $300 million that he put into Donald Trump's campaign apparatus, this $100 million, according to Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, is going to specific Trump-controlled operations, of which he can write checks for quote-unquote expenses to himself or anybody else in the family.
Sounds about right.
So if you want a new Tesla, come on down to Trump Sample Sales, and it'll only cost you about $100 million. Joining us via StreamYard right now, our friend, our colleague, native of River Falls, great hockey player, and I don't believe a guy who ever bought a used car from Junior Samples, the one, the only senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, Trygve Olsen. Trygve, how are you?
I never bought a used car from Junior Samples.
But
I never bought a Tesla. I never bought a Tesla either.
But do you remember Hee Haw?
I do remember Hee Haw. In fact, we went and toured the Grand Ole Opry not long ago. It's fantastic where they used
Right?
to shoot Hee Haw. Yeah. Roy
Yeah.
Clark.
Yeah, I was saying earlier about Roy Clark and Hee Haw. But I mean, what's your take, Trigby, on this spectacle on the White House lawn yesterday?
I mean, spectacle's the word. It's outrageous. It's, you know, it's befitting a country far less than what ours once was, and an insult to people like my old friend who's subsequently long gone, Adie Halverson, who is a survivor of the Bataan Death March.
Mm-hmm.
Outrageous.
And I think the fact that, and the great reporting by Maggie Haberman in the New York Times, pardon me, that this was more than just a commercial. Because Tesla, by the way, for those that don't know, Elon Musk company, that's where he has made most of his wealth. And by the way, he didn't create it. He just took it over after it was already kind of booming. But that's where he gets most of his money. And I believe I saw this morning where Elon Musk lost like $44 billion in the last month because Tesla is crashing. He's still worth, whatever, 200 and some billion. But Elon Musk company is crashing. And so he's worried about this. And so Trump is propping him up. But the real, in my opinion, Trigby, the real audacity of it is the fact now, according to this reporting in the New York Times, that Elon Musk paid Trump another $100 million. And you understand these things better than I because you've had to deal with it, people working against you in politics. Some of these quote-unquote political committees, it's pretty darn easy to write yourself a check for quote-unquote expenses, and some of this money just ends up back in the candidate or the people who are running the campaign, and there's not a lot of traceability, and it appears that's what's happened here between Musk and Trump yet again.
Well, it kind of is a mechanism for control, right? Certainly control within the Republican Party because you put $100 million into the Trump super PACs, which is an astronomical amount of money. And that, thereby creates a threat on Republican House members. You'll be primaried and we'll spend that money taking you out, right? So it's that becomes it does end up serving Trump's interests. How they'll apply that, it's a big stick for him to have. And I'm sure some of it will find its way into affiliated entities, but I don't know that. But certainly it is a huge stick. I think the bigger question though is, there was some research that came out in the last couple of days that suggests 85% of Tesla shareholders believe that Elon Musk's activities in politics are having a negative or very negative impact on the company's economic situation.
Yeah. No, there was somewhere.
It's malfeasance.
Yeah, it really is. Come on back. We'll take your phone calls. Trigby, Pat Kreitler will find his way eventually here. 855-752-4842. Kreitler signing autographs in our lobby now. It's the Civic Media Radio Network.
Station 92.7 WMD.
Kreitler was here. He had a meeting he had to do before he popped on.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late. I was tied up on
sitting.
something.
Freebellyrubs.com.
It's these are busy times.
Belly rubs? Yeah, they're local, dependable, and totally spoil our pets. When we get home, our house is just as it was when we left, and our dogs are happy. And the daily messages with pictures
I'm gonna
really
dial
gives
up
us
one of
peace
these.
of mind
Hang
while
on.
we're away. For house sitting,
One of what?
cat sitting, and dog
The
walks,
junior sample.
Oh, I have one dialed up to start the segment.
You
Yeah.
have one? All right, fantastic. That's great.
Freebellyrubs.com.
See, our minds think alike.
Freebellyrubs.com.
No, as soon as you started talking about it, I found one.
Remember the story of Lenny the leprechaun? Lenny moved to Madison searching for a place to live.
If I find the right place, I'll find me pot of gold.
So he went online and searched up movetomadison.com.
Ooh, what riches!
Yes, Lenny, riches indeed. People that sell with the Aaron Weber Group get the best price with updated market reports and instant property value quotes. Virtual or in-person meetings, too. Find your pot of gold when selling with the Aaron Weber Group, powered by Compass.
I'm Dan Schaefer. Let's recombobulate. Folks, we've got to talk about Derek Van Orden. The second-term congressman representing Wisconsin's 3rd District is at it again, dodging public meetings and making all kinds of unhinged comments. As many scramble and struggle to understand the chaos of what's happening in Washington, D.C., and how it's impacting people here in Wisconsin, Van Orden has been as frustrating and disrespectful as ever. In one instance, Van Orden took to social media to berate a veteran who had been fired from his job at the VA by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. And the veteran in question is simply someone who was just reaching out to his congressman, looking for answers. Van Orden's office has also...
Hi, friend. Honest as a day is long samples here. Folks, I don't mind telling you I made a bundle pushing used cars. And starting this weekend, I'm passing my profits on to you. Come on down to the lot and ask one of our salesmen on parole to work out some terms for you. That's BR549, and hold down the collect calls. I'm no Rockefeller, you know.
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It's 21 past the hour of 12 noon on Wednesday, March 12th. Sommers on the board. Trygve Olson, Senior Advisor to the Lincoln Project on the old StreamYard. That was the one and only, the incomparable Junior Samples from Hee Haw back in the day, the great CBS show that was spoofing rural life. And again, that accent, the whole thing, that was the real deal. Junior was right off the farm down there in rural Georgia, and they just put cue cards in front of him and let him go. I like the line, hold the collect calls. I'm no Rockefeller, you know. Well done, Mr. Zomerns. Appreciate it. Welcome back. We're talking about this used car sales deal. Not really, but kind of sort of. Donald Trump selling cars, Teslas, on the White House lawn, along with the owner of the company, Elon Musk. Trump claims he bought one, got in, couldn't drive it, didn't want to drive it. Unlike Joe Biden and Barack Obama and George W. Bush, which all drove vehicles while they were president. And afterwards, I might add. And then the reporting comes out by Maggie Haberman of New York Times last night that Elon Musk has paid Donald Trump out another $100 million to his, I'm going to call them personal campaign funds. That's not exactly right. But the difference is when Musk put in the $200+ million during the campaign, that went to Trump's Make America Great Again, PAC, Political Action Committee. And the reporting that the New York Times did last night is these are smaller PACs that are more directly controlled by Trump and his family, making it easier for them to divvy out money to themselves under the auspices of quote-unquote expenses. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Let's go to John, listening on WAUK in Milwaukee. John, thanks for calling in. What do you have?
Well, your comment on spectacle on the White House grounds made me think of something I wanted to share. Years ago, probably about 2010, somewhere in that area, Senator Ron Johnson was invited to our holiday meeting to speak and had no idea how to read a room. And if he used feckless to describe President Obama, he must have used it 30, 40 times. And not understanding that there's as many for Obama as maybe against. And the same thing here with this Tesla. Yeah, he's going to go to his base, but maybe not have that kind of finances for that car. And likewise, he's going to turn off an equal number of people. And Tesla's sliding right now. That's not going to help it, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it.
Can I mention one last quick thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have problems, and I've written our people. We only have 3 national people in the Democratic Party, which is Tammy Baldwin, Gwen Moore, and Mark Buchanan. And they're doing a good job, but they should be doing town halls across the state, the 3 of them together, forget about the Republicans. We can't affect their change, but they could be holding and getting people to express their concerns.
Appreciate the call, John. Just make sure you know before we let you go, Congressman Pocan actually has already done that. He was on MSNBC last night and alluded to he might do another one this weekend. What he's done, what he did last week, is he went to one of the small towns I know very well in far southwest Wisconsin in Lafayette County called Belmont. My old professor Jack O'Neill used to call it the crossroads of the nation, because geographically it's the middle of the country. Anyway, Belmont, the first state capital of Wisconsin, by the way. And Congressman Pocan held a town hall there. It's about 10 miles from Platteville, which is actually in Van Orden's district, in the 3rd district. And the room was packed. And lots of people came, and I think he's going to continue to do similar things like that. 855-752-4842. Mark in Prairie du Sac. Mark, thanks for calling. What say you?
Yeah, I can't help but think that this little commercial that Trump did, it's flirting dangerously close to a constitutional violation, because the only thing the president's supposed to get while he's in office is actually, his salary. I mean, this is a little technique. Well, we can put it in his presidential campaign or like this, but he just doles that out to family members and anything like this. So it just is. It's pretty offensive to me, just on a constitutional basis. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I think the only thing the president is actually supposed to get, according to the Constitution, is his salary, and to profitize off of that is just kind of a violation of the spirit of the Constitution, if not the Constitution itself.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Mark. Again, Trigby, I'll defer to you a little bit there because you've had a lot more experience in D.C. than me. But while a person is president of the United States, they get actually I don't know, I should say a modest salary. What is it, $300,000-$400,000 now, technically? But yeah, I mean, there are rules in all of politics. It doesn't matter whether you're president or U.S. senator or congressman, right? I mean, you can't directly profit or do a quid pro quo and take donations for legislation or anything else.
Technically, I don't think that they really care. So
technically, he says. And then, of course, you have to have a Department of Justice who will enforce that and defend it in courts.
Theoretically, you're not supposed to just create, the administration's not supposed to create agencies that give a bunch of people who aren't even who are temporary government employees, the right to go rummaging through all our data and put AI on it all across the entire federal government either. But
technically,
you're supposed to, if a court rules that you're supposed to do something, you're supposed to do it. Technically, technically, the Constitution suggests that Congress makes spending decisions, but
I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but there seems to be a through line there, Trigby.
You think?
I like a salty Trigby.
I am kind of saucy today.
You are. When we come back, we're going to take
I'm
a short
tired,
break.
Todd.
I can tell you're a little tired. Did you play
hockey?
I almost called you last night, but were you? I was afraid you'd be playing hockey.
I was not. I was working late.
Oh, all right. When we come back, I want your perspective. We're going to take a little break for Pam Yonke, the amazing, fabulous farm babe, for some agricultural updates, news, and sports. And when we come back, I want to ask Trigby his experience, particularly in Eastern Europe, fighting autocracies and dictators. What can we take of the United States now arresting a citizen or a permanent resident with a green card and taking that away because of their political views? Come on back. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Technically, that might not be constitutional either.
You think? Technically.
Any songs you want?
I'm going to get some water quick.
Oh, yeah. What would be a good song for today?
Today kicks off the Professional Dairy Producers Annual Business Conference. Thousands of dairy producers and agribusinesses are meeting at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison for this event. I'm Stephanie Hawk.
How about I Like to Rock by April Wine?
The Midwest Farm Report. Our own Ben Jarbo and Farm Director Pam Yonke are heading over there this afternoon. On the agenda today, dairy producers from the European Union will share their experience with carbon credits, among other topics. Professional Dairy Producers Executive Director Shelley Meyer has the details.
We have dairy farmers coming in from Ireland, France, and the Netherlands. And daring is daring, but obviously they work in a little bit different business climate. But it'll be very, very interesting this year to gather their insights on where they've been, because they've been trending ahead on the discussions of sustainability. They no longer have as much government support as they had. How are they navigating that? But also, what is their perspective right now? What's happening with the tariffs and some of the markets that we're seeing? And I think it'll be very, very interesting to sit
Anything in
next to
particular,
them.
Trig, you want to make sure we talk about today?
Perspectives to look forward to today.
No.
Professional Dairy Producers
There's not much good news, Todd.
Exactly.
I
I know.
good news.
I know.
With the preview. The
We can
business
talk about the
conference
fact that
goes through
it's now
tomorrow
an
in
actual
Energy Center
realistic
in Madison.
possibility that
Walk-ins
Aaron
are
Rodgers
welcome.
may in fact follow the
photos
Favre
at
path and
Midwest
become the
Farm
quarterback
Report
for the
on
Minnesota
Facebook.
Vikings.
And of course,
I thought you were going to say president of the United States.
Oh, no.
You think that's going to actually happen?
They're saying it's real now because the what the hell is his name? The quarterback for the Vikings went to the Rams.
Tornadoes, floods.
Yeah, he
What you
did.
see in real time helps tremendously in the warning.
That would be Sam Darnold.
That's it.
Good. They can have Aaron Rodgers.
Well,
Let's
how
be
fun would
honest.
that be?
How much do they like us? They constantly are picking up our trash. That's all they do. They take it out. They're like the Green Bay Packers garbage men. They take on our trash.
To become a citizen scientist, visit wisconsinweatherwatchers.org.
It's because they really want to be us. That's
right. The Minnesota Vikings are the Scott Walker of the NFL. They just want to be.
They are.
That Canada's and
True.
China's
100%.
retaliatory tariffs would continue. After finding some footing earlier this week, grain markets are falling today. Cash corn down 12 cents at $4.58 and a quarter. December new crop corn down 8 and a quarter cents at $4.46 and a quarter. Cash soybeans are down 15 and a quarter at $9.96 a bushel. November new crop beans down 14 and a half at $10.01 a bushel. July new crop wheat is down a nickel and a half at $5.66 and a quarter. But Class 3 milk contracts are seeing a bit of a rally. The April contract is up 26 cents at $17.70 a hundredweight. The May contract up 25 cents at $17.87. For the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Stephanie Hoff.
You can always continue the conversation on social media. Share your thoughts when you find and follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
The sun won't stop. There's plenty of it today with high temperatures reaching the mid-50s and more of it tomorrow as we climb to the low 60s. Clouds start to roll in for Friday, things become breezy, and we get muggy and warm with highs reaching 70. Then at night, thunderstorms roll
70?
through. I'm meteorologist.
Yeah, is that
Rick
crazy?
Morell. Right now, 40
And then it's going to be 40 on Friday or on what is it? No, 70 on Friday and 40 on Sunday. I think.
Now he is a farmer in southwestern Missouri.
This is an 80-20 Republican area down here. You can't throw a rock without hitting a Republican. And I still know all the guys I graduated with. So I always ask, don't admit you were wrong, just admit you were lied to. That's a lot easier to do. You just admit you were lied to, you can get over here with us and start working to fight the problem.
Matt Nair on air, weekdays at 11 on 92.7 WMDX and the Civic Media app. Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
Tom from Monona. I love this one. He says, "This is Tom. I like to rub my feet together and drink milk out of the cow." Listen, we'd all spoon ourselves if we could, just for some affection. But rubbing your feet together, as I
30
mentioned
seconds.
last
Thank
week,
you.
is the closest thing to self.
Flying from blue line to blue line and occasionally getting a penalty in the crease on the hockey rinks of America. Trygve Olsen joins us once again directly from our nation's capital. Former Republican like myself, a native of River Falls. He always keeps his skates sharp. And now a senior advisor at Lincoln Project. Trygve Olsen, I really want to see you. I've never seen you play hockey. I want to see you
Dude,
play hockey.
you didn't do a very good job with that one. He always keeps his skates like his wit very sharp.
Well, it's the daylight saving time.
Not well played, Todd.
All right, fine.
I do keep my skates sharp, though.
Everybody's a critic.
You know what I bought myself for Christmas? My very own home skate sharpener.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And is it
But
like
I don't like my skates really sharp. I kind of like them not so sharp. I use a 1 1/8 grind, which is not sharp. But
you're no
but my
Dorothy
wit,
Hamill.
my wit is sharp.
Yes, it
my
is.
my
I can
taste
attest to that.
in 80s hair metal is outstanding, as we just heard.
Oh,
I like
yeah,
to
sure.
rock by April Wine. Now, what are the odds? You know how awesome our listeners are? What are their odds that we could play Sister Christian? I ask a question about it, and immediately the first caller knows the answer of what makes that song unique.
Because a lot of listeners are from our generation.
Talking about my generation. Yes, correct. It's true. They're old. But not grumpy. Not grumpy.
Only
not
Trigby's slightly
grumpy. They're not grumpy Gen Xers. We're optimistic Gen Xers.
Yes, absolutely. We're optimistic. And you said it at the top of the show, and you're right. There's a lot of bad news out there. Let's just be honest about that. A lot of stuff to get us down. But I think it's important that we kind of dissect this and put it in perspective. And hang on, Trigby, because I have a positive, happy story from Wisconsin that I think will put a smile on your face.
All right, I'm
stand
ready.
by for that. But first, the not so happy news. Because there's some breaking news on this. I've been wanting to get to this for a couple of days, and with the fire hose of information, we just have not gotten to do it. This comes to us from the Associated Press. Federal immigration authorities arrested a Palestinian graduate student who played a prominent role in last spring's anti-Israel protests at Columbia University, according to his attorney. Mohammed Khalil was inside his university-owned residence. Say that again. Inside his university-owned residence on Saturday night near Columbia's Manhattan campus when several immigration and customs enforcement agents entered the building and took him into custody, according to his attorney. Greer, the attorney, said she spoke by phone with one of the ICE agents during the arrest, who said they were acting on State Department orders to revoke Khalil's student visa. When informed by the attorney that Khalil was in the United States legally as a permanent resident with a green card, the agent said they were going to revoke that too. Update here, just moments ago, by the way, from CBS News. Judge Jesse Furman said he would grant a request by Khalil's attorney allowing them to have privileged phone calls with Khalil at least twice a day, today and tomorrow, after being arrested, but they were going to keep him in custody. Khalil's attorney said they have been unable to have privileged communication with him since the arrest. They said the detention facility holding Khalil would not allow the type of call until March 20th. Trigby, for those that are not regular listeners, have spent a great deal of time in Eastern Europe fighting against autocracies and dictators and for democracy. And I want to set aside, because I have feelings on the Palestinian protests, I want to set that aside for a moment. We're talking about, regardless of a person's political views, whether I agree with them or not, they are a legal permanent resident with a green card. And for those who don't know, they used to be green, so that's why it's called that. It gives them the legal right to work. Being a permanent resident is one step away from a naturalized citizen. When you're a permanent resident, you can come and go as you want in the country. You can work anywhere like any naturalized American citizen can. You have the only thing you can't do is vote, basically, when you're a permanent resident. And here we have someone that, according to the attorneys, the U.S. State Department ordered that this guy be arrested, his green card revoked, not for any sort of damages, as far as we can tell, but rather because, and Trump called him out yesterday in this deal with Musk, and they keep using this word, Trigby, instigator. What do you say?
You know what? I'm with Ann Coulter on this one.
How so?
Well, Ann Coulter said, and I quote, "There's almost no one I want to deport, but unless they've committed a crime, there's almost no one I don't want to deport, but unless they've committed a crime, isn't this a violation of the First Amendment?" Like
when Ann Coulter, when it's too much for
when
Ann
you've
Coulter,
lost
it might
Ann
be more
Coulter,
right?
But what you have to understand is, I mean, Trump has even suggested that naturalized citizens should have their citizenship revoked. And if we're going to revoke naturalized citizens for violating the First Amendment, well, then it kind of gets to the point that I don't think they care much about the Constitution, right? Like that, the right to free speech is guaranteed to all of us, whether you're naturalized or a born citizen. The irony in all of this is he's doing his worst used car salesman shtick and he doesn't even drive at the White House with Elon Musk, who, slippery slope here, very likely lied, although he denies this, very likely lied on his citizenship application because at one point he was here, illegally.
Yeah.
Which I guess at some point, if he wanted to, they could decide that Elon Musk needs to be no longer naturalized. And that actually is a real violation. You can't lie on that. My wife went through the naturalization process. Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, all autocrats and autocratic actors, whether it's Putin, Lukashenko, or these guys, operate in the same way. They try and make people afraid to demonstrate they're inevitable and invincible. And that's how they try and keep and maintain power. And they want to have something they can hold over everyone, which is, they can arrest you, they can deport you, they can do whatever. I mean, that's what life in an autocracy is like. And people assume, well, they're not going to come for me. I haven't done anything. Eventually, everybody becomes exposed. That's what they're trying to do.
Speaking of autocratic actors, even the leader of Hungary and other nations in Europe join with American allies in France and Germany and the UK, calling Trump out over the last few days on what he has been doing in Ukraine. And now there is word this morning that Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, has agreed to a 30-day ceasefire if Russia will as well. There seems to be, Marco Rubio seems to be making some sort of repair in the damages there. But again, Trigby, as someone
but what did the Russians do? What did the Russians do after Zelensky called for the ceasefire? It was one of the worst nights of bombing last night that Ukraine has faced in over a year. Right. The reality is, I mean, having dealt around the edges with Putin and his people,
you're banned from Russia by Putin himself. That's more than dealing with the edges.
People in the United States are so lucky that they have never had to encounter people that are that zero-sum and that Neanderthalic. And I've said it over and over again. If Vladimir Putin could be doing, and his people, his troops, to Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, or Baraboo, Wisconsin, or Superior, or Madison, or Green Bay, they would be doing it. And their troops would be raping young girls, and they would be destroying, leveling cities. That is what they're doing. And this idea that Zelensky made the choice, or it's Biden's fault, the person who made the choice is Vladimir Putin to invade his neighbor. The person who is making the choice for God's sakes, man, we're in Wisconsin. If you're at a college across Wisconsin, you have to know a bunch of Canadians because they all come down here to play hockey and study. Look at what he's done. I mean, the Canadians, how do you make the Canadians angry at us? Like, how do you do that? You start threatening them. And Donald Trump is making that choice. Vladimir Putin made that choice.
Yeah.
And the idea that he doesn't get it is just so antithetical to what Republicans are supposed to be, what we as Americans are supposed to be. It's sad. And it's indefensible, to be honest. They can't defend it, so they try and deflect, they try and distract, they try and diminish.
855-752-4842. Let's go to the phone lines. 855-752-4842. Joe, listening on WMDX in Madison. Joe, always appreciate your listenership and call in. What do you have for us today?
Well, Trivia, I want to talk a little bit more, jumping off on, you had moved to Canada, and I wanted to talk on that. Earlier in the half-hour show, honest to God, you had this sadness and this weariness in your voice, speaking about our Constitution and where we are. And really, and the sense of just, technically the Constitution says this, but it appears to not be enforced. So I think we are in different times. We are not in the same place we used to be. And one of the ways that, and you just expressed it, is this animosity being pushed toward Canada. And it's really more than animosity. It seems to me that Trump has been fed a line, a phony baloney line by Putin, which is, hey, listen, you got Alaska up there. Take over Canada, 51st state, just annex it, and and Greenland too, and you're going to have this nice swath of country that's going to be all yours. The thing that fascinates me is that people are starting to talk about this like it's going to happen, and like there's going to be, voting in Canada to talk about this. What fascinates me about this is that my understanding of annexation, and you probably have a better sense of this with your work that you have done, is that is a result after a military takeover of a country. Mm-hmm. You don't just vote to be annexed, maybe if you're in the county level, but not on the country level. That doesn't happen. So what we are committing ourselves to with this kind of language is threatening a hostile military takeover of our neighbor to the north. And what amazes me about that is the geopolitical shakeout that could come from something like this. People will say, oh, the American forces will just roll over them and they'll that's that. Tell me that that's ever happened in a country where you're going to be losing yourself, your sovereignty, and your identity, and you just give up. I think that what's going on in Ukraine, where it was presumed that Moscow would roll over into Kiev and have that done in 3 days, has certainly proved to not be true. So I am interested in your threads looking at this from NATO. Here's a NATO member going after another NATO organization. Would NATO just change their stripes and have a different name? Would they just kick out America and start over with a new organization? And how would it play? I think people seem to forget this, that Canada is not alone. It is part of the British, I guess the word is, it's not the Commonwealth.
It's Commonwealth.
50,
well, common, yeah, I mean, it is the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question,
number,
and let's break this down. Let's break this down to a simpler level. If your neighbor, and this is the way people should think about it, if your neighbor suddenly said to you, "Hey, you know what? You're now going to be my renter, and I'm going to own your house because I can take it."
Right.
How would you respond?
Right.
Would you? And let's say they did take your house. What would you be doing to the house, right? Like you would fight that tooth and nail. That is in essence what he's saying to our neighbor.
Exactly.
All right, come on back. Thank you, Joe. Always appreciate your call. As our friend Matt Flynn likes to say, once again, Joe nailed it. We'll get more of Trivia's response the other side. And Pat Kreitlow is wrapping up his meet and greet with autographs. He'll join us after this. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show, the Civic Media Radio Network.
I do like to rock. Look at Pat. He's just wandering around.
He got his meet and greets done. The photographers. His stylist has done his hair. He looks great.
I've got a new song for us. How about Joe Diffie's "You Got to Stand for Something or You'll Fall for Anything"?
All right.
Don't want to be a puppy hanging on a string. Oh, look at this.
You're on
He's
one
got
thing, so you can adjust.
I just read a thing on Drudge about guys who have foundation and eyeliner on, and boy, Pat's looking like he might be. He might be buying into this.
So you're saying I could be
conservative.
vice president?
I'm saying you could be.
I am just a poor Kentucky boy just doesn't want to have too much shine, is all.
You always shine to me, Pat. Even
Oh,
back
that's
in the
right.
day when I was in grade school and you were on WEAU.
He just won't stop.
Nope.
I don't. Nope.
Well, is it even 12 months anymore? Now that you
Huh?
both, there's not even a 12-month difference anymore right now, is
No,
there?
there really isn't, actually.
How would the amount of
But
months
it's
change?
If I say it enough, it will become the truth. That's
I don't know. I guess like when, it's like Pat's older by like a handful of months, like 6 months.
yeah. Pat's like 9 months
Yeah.
older than I am.
Yeah.
Well, we're on in 30.
Well, fantastic. Putting his snowmobile away for the season and breaking out the convertible and making his way down to the capital city, the one, the only host of Up North News Radio, Mr. Pat Kreitlow. He's writing something on my
Shine on, you crazy diamond. Love always, Pat Kreitlow.
He signed my autographed my hand. The receiving line is done. The people in the lobby, the autographs are over, and he's here live in the studio along with Trygve Olsen, senior advisor of the Lincoln Project out in D.C. How are you, Patrick?
This is always just the best hour or the best segment of improv on Civic Media.
That's pretty much what.
Yep.
The less you prepare, the better the segment is.
There is a comedy shop downstairs. We should
I
just
know.
show up
It's
one night at open improv night. We could
Here's
rock
the deal.
it.
If any of us are ever funny enough, a trap door opens and we just drop down on the stage. Notice that hasn't happened yet.
Has not happened.
So we're still trying to get into the bigs. Still want that cup of coffee.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good to have you both here. Good to have you in person, Pat. Just take a minute to tell us a little about what brings you here. And Trygve, they got desperate enough. Somebody got a bad case of food poisoning, so he asked me to come on along tonight.
No, it's not like that at all. You were actually one of my first thoughts for a panelist for our, Protecting Justice for All Supreme Court election forum tonight, where we're going to have 3 great panels talking about the impact of this election on April 1st in reproductive health care rights, on the economy, and on education. And that's where you come in, moderating a great group of experts and lawmakers talking about whether it's the voucher program that is quickly becoming a $1 billion monster, or Act 10, the challenges to that. You will be talking to some great panelists, 3 different panels, about 25 minutes each. I'll moderate the one on reproductive health care rights, and Dan Schaefer, Civic Media political editor and creator of the Recombobulation Area, will be the moderator for a panel on jobs and the economy. Again, something that the state Supreme Court can go wildly one way or the other, either on behalf of workers and consumers and natural resources, or a court that is once again in the pockets of Wisconsin manufacturers and commerce and other assorted nefarious.
And you can hear it all
ne'er-do-wells.
start at 5 o'clock right here on the Civic Media Radio Network. It'll be broadcast. We can see the place right across the street at the Overture Center, so that makes it real easy. And Pat, I'm not sure if you knew this or not, while you were on your latest world tour, and you were so kind as asked me to fill in for a day, Trygve did weasel his way into Up North News Radio because he was so kind enough to bring along his friend, a person you know well, Mike Johnson, the superintendent of public schools in Eau Claire. And so we talked to them.
That Mike Johnson.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, not little Mike.
Oh, okay.
Not little
Gotcha.
Mike
Gotcha.
Johnson.
Okay.
But it's people like that and Mike Johnson who are they're working their tails off along with teachers and educators and staff and parents to make these public schools run. And how they're able to do their job, people don't realize this, could be determined by rulings on the Supreme Court.
Yes, it does. People will say, well, but what does a Supreme Court have to do with that? And, as we've discussed, a lot of folks will not necessarily connect the dots. An event like this will help people see Another example that I'd use, and Dan Schaefer might get into on the economy, is a court that tells the Department of Natural Resources that either, yes, we have defined what hazardous chemicals are, and so you can continue to seek out, remediate the sites, pursue damages from those responsible, or one that says, well, actually, DNR, you have to write a separate rule for every one of the chemicals that might get cleaned up. Even if there are 2,000 different PFAS chemicals, you've got to go through all these hoops before you can go after the corporate polluters. A state Supreme Court can do one or the other, and this one election can make the difference for a long time to come.
Lots of great information. Again, starting tonight at 5 o'clock. Pardon me, 5 this afternoon.
5 till 7.
5 until 7.
We get done just before 7, so that right away, folks who want to watch the candidates actually debate, that's at 7 o'clock through WISN TV. So we will just become a watch party after that, and then I believe it's open bar.
Trigby Kreitlow brought down some old lining kugels.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I'm looking forward to that.
Once the 12-pack is gone, open bar closes.
All right, Trigby, here's some good news for you. UW-Madison, the curling team, is on a dynastic run, taking home its second straight title. On Sunday afternoon, Wisconsin knocked off Michigan Tech 5-3 to claim the crown. The Badgers finished with 66 points, which in curling, I guess, is good. Did you ever play curling up there at River Falls? Did you ever curl?
I never curled. No.
I was waiting
No,
for you to
I
connect the
did
dots on this one.
we did do that game, where there's like sawdust on the, where you shuffleboard kind of bar game.
Yeah.
You know that one?
Yes,
it's kind of like curling for drunks. Actually, curling and drunks might go together. But
right.
Have you ever noticed the thing about when they walk in at the Winter Olympics, right? You got like the figure skaters, they all look good. The hockey players look good. The downhill skiers, the speed skaters, man, those guys, they look like Eric Heiden, right? They got thighs like oak trees. And then you got the curlers who look like they just came out of they just came out of Ray's bar in Eau Claire. And probably did.
They did. Quite literally did. Still got a lung dart that they fired up, bringing in there with them. Absolutely.
Exactly.
They're real people. They're just real.
I love. Yeah. Yep. My sister has a friend from college at Concordia who was an Olympic curler, and that guy, he probably goes like 250.
So he's the Shaquille O'Neal of curling.
Yeah,
exactly right.
See,
those guys.
Well, Trivia, I hope you.
That's a great American sport, baby.
It is.
That's right.
It is a great American. Well, be happy, Trigby. We appreciate you. Keep fighting the good fight. We're gonna make it through it together with our friends and neighbors.
Behave tonight at the Forum, guys.
We promise.
All right, you're doing the Lord's work.
A flask, so that's great.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Trigby. Senior advisor of Lincoln Project. Pat, you want to stick around for what's worse, or you got to go?
I wish I could, but
all right,
the next meeting beckons.
Very busy man.
I
Pat
know.
Kreitlow, we'll talk to him tonight at 5 o'clock. Zommers and I are back with what's worse after this. You won't want to miss it. Todd Allbaugh Show, Civic Media.
Great autograph.
Yeah, thank you. Here's the other autograph. There you go.
My work here is done.
It's fantastic.
Why is Trigby having a bad day?
I'm not.
It's just a lot of. It's just overwhelming. Even Joe. Joe
tired.
called in and said, "I can tell Trigby feels down." He said, "I can hear it in his voice." People were concerned about him.
I'm a tired warrior.
Even warriors got a nap in the foxhole now and then.
Yeah. It's true.
All right. Mr.
Yeah, he really does have to go. Thanks,
Look
Pat.
at that.
Appreciate it.
Typical
Appreciate
politician. You got a problem? I got a meeting to go to.
Oh, that's fun.
All right. I got to roll too. See you guys.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you later.
Give me a call. We'll connect soon.
Yeah, our mutual friend, I was talking to her about our latest tour. We want to call it Todd and Trigby's Town Halls. And we're going to do Town Halls.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. I
like
like
that?
it. Yeah, well, that would be really fun, actually.
All right.
Okay.
We must
sounds
reserve
good.
seats for Derek Van Orden at each one.
Yeah, exactly. All right, see you guys. Bye.
WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. A civic media station.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. The trade war escalating with U.S.-led tariffs on aluminum and steel kicking in on all countries today. President Trump at the White House hosting Ireland's prime minister defended his hikes, calling other countries' tariffs and counter-tariffs unfair.
Whatever it is, it doesn't even matter what it is. If they charge us 25 or 20% or 10% or 2% or 200%, then that's what we're charging them.
Canada, China, and European Union leaders imposing reciprocal tariffs. Massive layoffs taking place across the education department, the next target of the Trump administration's cutbacks. Roughly 50% of staffers at the DOE being laid off or offered buyouts. Curriculum decisions still taking place, as they always have, at local and state levels. Severe storms on tap for the West Coast, raising the risk in Los Angeles County for flooding and debris flow in burn-scarred areas of L.A. County after wildfires swept through. This is ABC News.
This is your local civic media radio station. Want to hear even more? Anytime? Find all of it at civicmedia.us.
Chico in Rio
For 92.7
is a curler.
WMDX News, I'm
Yes,
Tomei
that's
Olsen.
fantastic. That's where we're
Breaking news
starting.
Today, the Madison City
I
Clerk has
figured,
been
so I told him,
placed
like,
on
I bet we're going to
hold
take
for
this.
the
Yeah.
spring election. Mary Beth Witzel-Bell has been at the center of the uncounted ballots case when nearly 200 absentee ballots were found after the November election. City staff say the clerk's office didn't notify anyone until weeks later. The Wisconsin Elections Commission has opened an investigation. Commission Chair Ann Jacobs when they discussed it last week.
They find a sealed bag of ballots on November 12th. They don't open it even until November 13th.
Those of you on the stream may
then-
notice that Todd got his hairs cut.
Close it back up, and they don't do anything with it until November 26th. What on earth is going on for 2 weeks? And
What
we don't
on
know the
earth?
answer to that.
The State Elections Commission has the power to determine
All right, this is fantastic,
that the clerk
folks.
acted
Watch on the
improperly
stream.
or even illegally.
Well, I'm going to give you the heads
Last
up.
week, they
What's
decided to
worse,
continue their investigation.
slivers
This next phase
or
will
paper
include
cuts?
having city staff
Slivers
sit
or
for
paper
depositions.
cuts? Ooh.
Witzel-Bell
Now,
will
is it a sliver or
undoubtedly
is it a
be on that
splinter?
list. Meanwhile, the
that's-
city is doing
that's
its
a
own
good one.
investigation under the umbrella of the mayor's office.
Neither one are
Because
pleasant.
of what they found
They're
in
also
that
the same thing.
investigation, Witzel-Bell is now on paid
Well,
administrative
I
leave.
say slivers or
Mayor
paper
Sasha
cuts.
says, quote, given the nature of the issues being investigated, we felt this was a necessary step to maintain public confidence in the operations of our clerk's office, end quote. Madison City Attorney Michael Haas will act as interim city clerk, and he's well qualified to fill in. He was once administrator of the Wisconsin Elections Commission. The mayor plans to allocate additional staff to the clerk's office to make sure they have extra sets of hands. Rhodes Conway says they will, quote, spare no city resource, end quote, to make sure every vote is counted on April 1st. I'm Savannah Tomei Olsen. You're listening to 92.7 WMDX News.
The Bucks lose in Indy. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. Bucks against the Pacers. Just over 3 seconds left when Oshkosh native Tyrese Halliburton makes a clutch three-point shot and draws a foul to win the game. Brian Anderson on TNT.
Pacers down 3. Halliburton's got the ball. Halliburton rises up.
The Bucks lose 115 to 114. Doc Rivers says nobody covered Halliburton.
He was open the whole play, and we'll have to figure it out because that's a play that should never happen.
So the Bucks have lost 3 in a row. They host the Lakers tomorrow night. Junior Bridgman has died. He collapsed from a heart attack while speaking at a Boy Scouts luncheon in Louisville. Bridgman played 9 seasons for the Bucks before becoming a billionaire businessman and part owner of the team. John McLaughlin was one of his teammates.
The finest person I've ever known in my life. Just class guy.
Junior Bridgman was 71. With Sports on Mike Clemens.
Local radio for you and your community. It's Civic Media's mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us.
The sun won't stop. There's plenty of it today with high temperatures reaching the mid-50s and more of it tomorrow as we climb to the low 60s. Clouds start to roll in for Friday, things become breezy, and we get muggy and warm with highs reaching 70. Then at night, thunderstorms roll through. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Right now, 44 degrees.
At Civic Media, we encourage active political engagement and remind listeners to think critically about political advertisements you may hear during this critical election year. Our
Advertisements? Did he
stations are
really say
licensed by the
advertisements in
FCC
this?
and are
I think he did.
required to
Oh,
accept
Kreitler's coming
all
back.
ads for
Hell,
federal
there's Dan
candidates.
Schaefer.
We also
Dan
air state and
Schaefer is here,
local
ladies and
candidates,
gentlemen.
as well as paid ads from issue and PAC groups. Truth is rarely as simple as any political ad may claim. So again, we urge you to think critically about what you hear in the spirit of promoting authentic and respectful civic dialogue.
Ready for the April election?
gets high
Here's
like
a
a
special
sauna
invitation
here,
for
though,
you.
when
Join
the
the
sun
free
shines.
Protecting Justice for All conversation about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race Wednesday, March 12th
But still,
from
we're
5 till 7
appreciative.
p.m. at the Overture Center in
All right,
Madison.
good
Public News
See you
Radio
guys later.
host Pat Kreitlow, Civic Media's Todd Allbaugh, and Dan Schaefer will lead a guest discussion about the economy, education, environment, and more.
Got 30
Then
seconds.
stay
All
for
right,
the candidates debate watch party.
Attend in person or listen to
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with our outstanding producer and engineer, Mr. Aaron Zommers, on the board. It is 6 past the hour of 1 o'clock on this Wednesday, March 12th, 2025.
He wanted to make up for being late last hour.
Oh, I see. We had a camel that came early. And then welcome. Very good. Glad to have you along. Anyway, it's great to have it. How about the first hour? Many thanks to Trygve Olsen, senior advisor at the Lincoln Project. Absolutely fantastic. And then Kreitlow, in between autograph appearances, stops by in person. So that was great.
We almost thought we were going to get him again in this hour, too, but no, he was just stopping it.
He's busy. We're doing this event for the Supreme Court race at 5 o'clock this afternoon, so 5 until 7. Bring it back here. I'll keep it tuned here all day, but specifically for that great program, a great panel discussion from 5 until 7 here on Civic Media. And then if you're wanting to watch the Supreme Court debate, you can do that at 7 o'clock. We are not just, people, I've had some texts. We are not carrying it because there's all kinds of legal things going on, and the people who are in control of it, the TV station in Milwaukee who's doing that, they said no. So
it's as simple as that.
Simple as that. But do tune in from 5 until 7, and then still plenty of time to watch the debate between the Supreme Court folks in whatever form you want to do that at 7 o'clock. Coming up a little bit later this hour, What's Worse segment, dealing with slivers or paper cuts. Ooh. But right now, and I'm very excited about this, the last segment there before the news, we were talking about the fact that the University of Wisconsin-Madison curling team, the curlers, are national champions. Over the weekend, they knocked off the Michigan Tech University 5-3 to claim the crown. And Kreitlow and Trygve and I were talking about curling. None of us have done it. But here now, and this is one of the many reasons I love doing this show, is our listeners. One of our longtime listeners from the beautiful burg of Rio. We have Chico from Rio. And I love saying that. Chico from Rio joins us via the phone. He was listening and called in during the break. Chico, I understand you, in fact, are a curler.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. I've been playing it for about 4 years now, and I absolutely love it. I'm a very competitive person, and at that point in time, I couldn't play softball anymore, so I looked for something that was competitive, and curling was it. And I don't want to make it sound like it's super competitive. You strive to do the best you can personally, as well as a team, but it's such a precise sport. It's kind of like golf. Every once in a while, you make that good shot and you think you can do that every time. And the same way with curling. The only difference here is that when you hit the golf ball, it's going to land where it stops. On the other hand, when you release the rock, it may not go where it was intended to go, and you can alter its course by sweeping it. So it's not just shuffleboard on a slippery surface.
I love this. The
So-
fact you called in. I love the fact that you picked this game up 4 years ago. What made you want to get into curling, Chico?
Well, to tell you the truth, what really got me interested in it was the Olympics, maybe 8 years ago or something. And I was looking at the shots that we're making. And what was really good is that the commentators were talking about the strategy of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I can't possibly imagine what has to go in the skip. He's the captain of the team and throws the last 2 rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Has to be thinking in his head when he's trying to figure out where he wants the next rock to go. And can the person that's actually throwing that rock, are they capable of that shot, or maybe just 1 out of 3 times? And if he misses, is there another way that we can alter that rock and maybe do something else with it? So I'm the lead. That means I throw the first rock, and usually my rocks are always knocked off there by the time the end is over. But and the nice thing too, it's a very, I talked about the competitiveness, and that's a personal thing, but it's a very sportsmanlike sport. Before and after every match, you shake hands with the opposition and you all wish them good curling.
Mm-hmm.
Our clubhouse, as probably many has large round tables that you can have 8 people sit at it afterward. And so afterwards we commune. And because I had lived in Portage, I had already known 1/3 of the people that were in the club, and then I met the other 2/3 over the last 4 years, and they're just all good people. They're just from all walks of life, and it's a sport that you can do forever. People use sticks. They
Right.
can't walk anymore.
Right.
They can't bend down. I was a volunteer the last 2 years when we hosted a national wheelchair curling event, which is people in a wheelchair. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just a sport that it's very interesting. It's very competitive. I enjoy going. I curl once a week, sometimes twice a week, but mostly just once. And I look forward to that night, and not just what happens on the ice, but also what happens afterward.
I think this is such a cool story. I appreciate you calling in. And one, you mentioned the Olympics inspiring you. And correct me if I'm wrong, one of the gold medalists on one of the last couple of Olympic teams is from Wisconsin, right?
Right.
I mean, I think that's a great connection.
It's kind of ironic. I'm trying to remember this girl. My memory fails me here, but less than a block away from me is an Olympic curler.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's just and the thing that's also, and I don't quote me on this, but I've been told that Columbia County has more curling rinks than any county in the country.
Really? See, I would have thought it would have been somewhere by Superior or Hayward or one of those northern counties, but here in South Central Wisconsin, Columbia County.
Yeah, we have 5 in our county, and they're not. Portage is the biggest of all those, and you have Poynette, and you have Partyville, and you have Lodi, and you have Arlington, and they all have their little curling rinks, and we curl at their places once in a while. Yeah, it's a wonderful history.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that they have at the curling club of the old rocks and what they used to be like. I mean, they were rocks.
Right.
They were called rocks for a reason because it was a rock.
Right.
And they used to in Portage because we had a built-in ice sheet in the Portage when the canal would freeze over. They would, plow the snow out. They would curl on the canal at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's real. Portage has a real history that way about.
Oh yeah,
too,
it's a beautiful town. Yeah, a lot of history in Portage.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you, Chico, for your listenership. We always appreciate it. Thank you for calling in and sharing this with us, because it's a quintessential Wisconsin, not just winter, but we think about it more winter game and a pastime. And as you point out, a great way to just build community. And we need more of that now than ever.
Yeah. Keep up the fight.
Hey, thank you, Chico. Great job, and thanks for calling in. Thank you, Chico. Chico in Rio. How about that, Zommers? I mean, see, that's one of these things where people say, well, how do you put your show together? And I say, well, sometimes I come in and we got kind of a show, and then all of a sudden something happens, and all of a sudden we got a show. And right there, we didn't set any of that up. It was just Chico being a great listener and calling in. And what a great explainer and storyteller. And I think he nailed it. Like so many of our activities in Wisconsin that get us through the winter, or I know now with indoor rinks, you could do it anytime. You could just see it or hear it in his voice that it's the relationships, the friendships that he has built with people in curling that mean as much to him as the sport itself.
Yeah, I have been interested in trying curling, but I've never actually done it because I just assumed that there was nowhere for me to do it, which is a stupid assumption.
Not necessarily. I didn't know there were that many, particularly in Columbia County, just north
Very
of
cool,
Madison. So super cool. Thank you, Chico. We appreciate that. And once again, congratulations to the University of Wisconsin-Madison curling team. Their second straight title. Yes, or on Sunday afternoon over Michigan Tech 5-3. Oh, I forgot to ask him. 66 points. Like, is that really high, or how? That's what Wisconsin got. The Badgers got 66. So, congrats to them, and thanks to Chico for calling in. It's 15 now past the hour of 1 o'clock. Time once again for What's Worse. Let's go.
This or that, this or that. But of course, the choice is yours. You can get with this, or you can get with that.
Time once again for What's Worse. No prizes to give away, no money to give you, but your chance to have your voice heard across statewide radio, all 11 news, talk, sports, civic media radio stations in every major media market. No better way to get your voice out there, to get your product heard than advertising on civic media. Give us a shout. Go to our website, civicmedia.us, civicmedia.us, and get in touch. Be happy to help you out. All right. This is one of those numbers where it's like, ooh, you say it, and it's like, oh, don't talk about it. because I think also it's going to be tax time. And you and I are still waiting to do our taxes. We won't go into why.
Actually, I got that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I should check the mail. We had a little side venture. We were waiting for some tax forms to come through, but apparently they did. So that's fantastic. And so what people are doing, a lot of people, you still have to use some like your W-2, whatever, like some of these things are still paper. And while you're doing all this, occasionally you will get a paper cut. Ugh, I know, I hate it. So the what's worse for today? What's worse, a sliver or a paper cut? A sliver or a paper cut?
Oh, I hate these pictures.
Oh, I know. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. We might not leave the pictures up today for the entire segment.
I'll take it down after a little while.
You can see the photo, as we always do. Thanks to the great CP for putting that together. But yeah, what's worse, a sliver or a paper cut? 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. You can also give us a text on the Civic Media app if you don't have it. Download it today, your Apple and Android or Android device. Simply go to your app store. In the search bar, type in Civic, CIVIC Media. It'll pop up a little CM logo. Click on that. Takes less than a minute to download. It is free. It's what Gail King at CBS calls a deal, the Civic Media app. We'll go to time for John in Boaz. John, about 30 seconds. What's worse, a sliver or a paper cut?
Sliver.
Sliver. Any reason why?
Because I was building a church one day, and I come down off the trusses, and I had to go to the doctor because the sliver was between the digital nerve and the bone.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you poor guy. And you had to go to the doctor.
You could die from 1,000. You could die from 1,000 paper cuts, but one sliver,
and it's over.
Just like the segment.
That's great. That's great.
Wisconsin's award-winning landscape management company for 65 years. You've seen their beautiful work at Hilldale Shopping Center. From expert lawn care to seasonal flower beds, precise trimming and sustainable solutions, David J. Frank makes your vision a reality. And right now is the best time to prune or remove trees. Request your free quote today at davidjfrank.com and get on their list for spring clearance. David J. Frank, 65 years of excellence in every blade of grass.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people.
All right.
Nevada Senate Bill 406 made it a felony to harass or intimidate election workers. In a federal
Folks
appeals
watching on the
court March
stream,
7th,
feel free to
four
type in the old
right-wing
StreamYard
activists
or
claimed that the law
Facebook
is too
or
vague
YouTube.
and could allow them to be unfairly intimidated
Yeah, neither one
against
are fun.
participating in
Slivers
the election
or
process. SB 406, signed
paper
by
cuts.
Republican Governor Joe Lombardo in May 2023, was unanimously passed in both houses of the legislature after threats to Nevada election workers following the 2020 and 2022 elections. Under the new law, individuals who intend to interfere
My high
with
school
the conduct
trombone
of an
teacher
election or
once had a
retaliate
sliver,
against election
and he went into the
officials
doctor for them
could
to
face
get
up
it
to
out,
4
and he
years
was
in
like, he
prison.
thought he pulled it
also
out, but then he
protects
still felt
election
it in there,
workers from
and they went
doxing
in and they numbed up his
disseminating their
hand,
personal information.
and he
The Reno
watched as they
Gazette
like
Journal
peeled the skin
reports
and
that
dug
the
around
plaintiffs
and
used a 2020 social media post by Attorney General Aaron
That's why I didn't
Ford
say it
to
on the air,
demonstrate
'cause I'm
that
like,
the
I
law
don't know,
was
that
too
might be
vague
too much
and
for some
itself
people.
could be viewed as intimidation. Ford's post read in
And then
part,
it turns out he
FYI,
did get it
voter
out.
intimidation
Oh.
is
So
illegal
they
in
just kinda
Nevada.
dug around and they're
Believe
like,
me
it's
when
not
I
fair.
say it.
Oh
You
my
do it and you will
gosh.
be prosecuted, unquote. The case,
Oh.
dismissed in federal circuit court for lack of evidence, is back.
Little paper cuts and my face is flushed. Can we loosen up? Loosen up. Spilling coffee cups on a crowded bus. Is it just too much? Just too much. Little paper cuts and my face is flushed. Can we loosen
Little
up?
paper cuts or a sliver. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 21 now, past the hour of 1 o'clock on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Zommers on the board, right in the middle of our What's Worse for Today segment. Or what's worse for today, I don't know. Today is what's worse. That's a better way to say it. And this, Zommers, I've been talking over a break here, and he's been sharing stories. I'm not sure. There's nothing terribly wrong. It's just when you hear it, it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
It gives you what it does. It gives you the heebie-jeebies.
It sure does give you the
And
heebie-jeebies.
people don't want the heebie-jeebies. What's worse, slivers or paper cuts? Slivers or paper cuts? 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. You can also text us on the Civic Media app. Text coming in here fast and furious. We have we have a caller on WAUK saying slivers are worse because you have to dig it out. And that's the story you were telling about in a friend that thought they got it out. Well, you go ahead.
Yeah, so my high school trombone teacher one day was working on his house, and next time I saw him, he had a bandage on his hand. And he's like, yeah, I got this sliver, and I think I might have gotten it out, but I think part of it broke off and it's still stuck in there. And then I saw him the next week for my trombone lesson, and he told me the story that he went to the doctor for them to go take it out. And the doctor's looking and trying to find it and doesn't see it, and is like, well, you still feel it in there. We're going to look. So they numbed up his hand, and he watched as the doctor poked around and tried to find it.
Yeah,
Turns out it wasn't in there anyway, and so it was just
all for naught.
Unfortunate.
Ugh. What's worse, a sliver or a paper cut? Steve, listening on WAUK in Milwaukee, says metal slivers are the worst.
Ooh.
But in general, a paper cut is worse. Now, see, particularly like for welders or people that work with metal, a metal sliver that could just be, they get infected really easily. Dave in New Berlin listening in saying they both blow. I'll pass on both. Yeah, neither one are good, right? Brian, listening on WAUK in Milwaukee, says a paper cut is worse. It burns anytime you wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, or when the paper cut is in the crease bend of your finger. And mine always go in those spots. Because the photo we had up was this little clean paper cut at the end of your finger. Mine are always like on a knuckle or the crease of your hand, like they were saying. Yeah, absolutely. And Brian adds, it also takes days to heal. Yeah. Jack, listening in Merrimack on WAUK, what's worse, a sliver or a paper cut? Says slivers. Definitely. Like the Trump administration, they're a constant irritation, difficult to remove completely, and can have serious effects even after removal.
He's not wrong.
Well written, Jack. Well written. Tyler, listing on WMDX in Columbia County, which is land of the curlers, as it turns out. Tyler says a sliver is worse, as you could tape a paper cut even if you don't have a bandage. However, the movie Onward, that is, has magic in every fiber. And I also believe Sun Prairie Tub Rink has a curling club. All right, so I have to ask Mathers about that if he's ever been curling in in Sun Prairie. We're doing what's worse, slivers or a paper cut. What else do we have here? Len in Madison says it's comparable in scope. The sliver is worse until removed, after which the paper cut may be worse in healing. And also DJ, listening up there in beautiful Wausau, Wisconsin, land of WXCO, says paper cuts are worse because you can at least dig a sliver out. Oh, dig a sliver out. Okay, thank you. Paper cuts are a waiting game to heal. Yeah, that's DJ in the Saw. Not the Shaw, but the Saw. Very, very different places. Yeah, I don't know, Zombers. What do you think? Paper cuts or slivers?
I think slivers are worse. I think, as people have said, paper cuts usually hurt more and for longer, but slivers, I'm always paranoid that part of it's going to break off and be stuck.
Yeah. I think
also more danger for infection.
Right. Sometimes a paper cut can hurt more at the beginning when you get like, oh, geez, it just stings, right? And particularly, I don't want to gross people out, but when it's not like a thin piece of paper, when it's a thicker type of paper or material and you get a paper cut, those are just...
They hurt.
And to one of the other listeners' points, I've gotten a paper cut and thought it was okay, and then like an idiot started eating popcorn and literally got salt in the wound. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that doesn't feel good. But no, I would join you, and I think the majority of listeners, overall, overall, the sliver is worse for the reasons stated, that especially if it breaks off or it can really fester and just, you can put a Band-Aid kind of over a paper cut, but even if you put a Band-Aid over a sliver, it's sore. Well, my grandma used to always say, put a piece of white tape over like a sliver that's not in very far, and it'll pull it out. And that kind of works.
Or I've used a credit card to push it out.
Really? A credit card?
Yeah, if you come at it from the right angle, it can either hit the back end and push it out, or you can kind of like lever it up. I know that's gross, but it works.
One of my grandparents, my grandmother's, she used to have a neighbor, Jessie. Jessie lived over the hill. And Jessie was wonderful and lovely, but she was a little different. And one time my grandma called her and said, oh, I have this sliver. She said, I don't know why I can't. It's so sore. And Jessie said, well, Mary, she called her real name is Marguerite, and she called her Mary Marguerite for whatever reason. Mary Marguerite, put Vaseline in your eye. What? And my grandma said, Jessie, that's not going to do anything for my sliver. And she said, no, but it'll make you forget all about it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, she wasn't, that was really the way that she was. Good old Jessie. Our own Casper says, what's worse than both of those is my older brother shooting me in the leg with a BB gun? Wait. He says he still has it in his leg. It's been there 35 years. I've grown attached to it.
Or is it grown attached to you?
I wonder, like, so when Casper, he travels, when he goes through the metal detector, does his leg go off?
I'd be interested to know as well.
I mean, that's terrible. Well, Jude in East Troy says we heat our house with wood, so we wear gloves. No problem there. Well, there you go. There's a smart person. Come on back, take a news, weather, and sports break, and then discuss some more headlines. The Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. Your news,
I get the
conversations,
full
and a whole lot of
Casper
fun.
says for those
It's
watching
all
on the
your
stream.
local Civic Media radio station or the
I get
Civic
the
Media
full
app.
body cavity search every time. My word. My word.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. If you requested an absentee ballot for the spring election, it's probably on the way. Many municipalities sent out ballots in the mail yesterday. You can still request that a ballot be sent to you should you want to vote by mail or vote by drop box. Your deadline to request an absentee ballot is March 27th. Early in-person voting starts most places March 18th. You can find all the information you need at myvote.wi.gov. A little relief for people with Anthem Insurance who see doctors at UW. The two companies have agreed to extend their agreement into the summer. UW Health and Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield are negotiating payment terms. Their current agreement expires March 31st. So as it stood on April 1st, people with Anthem coverage would suddenly find that their UW doctor is out of network. While the two companies have not come to a new agreement, they have
really
given
annoying.
themselves more time.
What
While they
she's talking
negotiate,
about.
they've agreed to an extension until
Anthem Blue
July
Cross Blue
1st.
Shield and UW.
Madison's bus rapid
I keep
transit
getting
line
letters in the mail,
finally
like,
launched
from
last
both of
year
them,
after
like,
more
hey,
than a
your coverage
decade
might-
in the
right?
making.
Or the extended
This was
whatever.
just
They
phase
extended it, yeah.
one. But now its future could be in jeopardy because of federal cuts. The Trump administration has been slashing funding across different
I
sectors,
really
from
hope
the
they
USDA
figure it out
scientists fighting
because
bird flu to veterans at the
that would suck
Office of
a
Veterans
lot.
Affairs. The east-west route opened last
For a lot of
year,
people.
and the next phase is supposed to be the north-south route. Since the BRT line launched, overall ridership has
finally think I
increased by
figured
over
out
10%.
all the different doctors I have to
According
see
to WKOW,
with my
the city was
insurance.
expecting
Really? And now
$118 million,
they
which would
might
pay for
not
a
renew
majority
the
of
deal.
the project.
So-
That's now up in the air, but the city's transportation director says they'll finish the north-south line with or without federal funding. You can find more local and state news anytime at WMDXradio.com. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. This is
Let's go back with
92.7
that the
WMDX
$25,000
News.
pyramid music, please.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. Dolly Parton told Oprah Winfrey that she thought she would be a great mother. Parton elaborated, saying she and her recently deceased husband, Carl Thomas Dean, ultimately decided not to have kids because Parton wanted the freedom to pursue her career and be a mother to all children. That is so Dolly Parton. Parton said at one point they even had a name picked out if they had a girl, but decided against it. I'm guessing it was Dolly Jr.? Billy Joel is putting his health before his tour. The 75-year-old music icon has wisely
I didn't even
chosen
realize
to
this till
postpone
right
working the
now
road
that
so he can
the
rehab after a
50%
recent
tariffs
medical
were only for
procedure.
like
Joel's camp says he will
7
take 4
hours.
months away from performing,
And then he
to
rolled
get
it back
his
to
health
25
back.
again.
Joel expects to make a full recovery and will resume his tour in Pittsburgh on July 5th of this year. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic
I know.
Media Radio Network.
That's why Trinity was tired.
Yeah, understandable.
You can always continue the conversation on social media. Share your thoughts when you find and follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
The sun won't stop. There's plenty of it today, with high temperatures reaching the mid-50s, and more of it tomorrow as we climb to the low 60s. Clouds start to roll in for Friday, things become breezy, and we get muggy and warm, with highs reaching 70. Then at night, thunderstorms roll through. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. It's 46 degrees at our studios.
Today's job market is full of demand for skilled trade workers.
Russia strikes
Electricians,
Zelensky's hometown
welders,
after
mechanics,
ceasefire
These
proposal.
and other trades are the backbone of every community. They're also a
Sons
huge
of
part in
bitches.
making sure the Army National Guard is always fulfilling its mission of service to our country and communities. Soldiers train to keep the power flowing, engines running, and supplies moving. The skilled trades these soldiers perform are the same ones needed in today's civilian workforce. Army National Guard soldiers are on the fast track to learning skills that can set them up for success at home with companies looking to hire the
30
best,
seconds.
with options from plumber to
right. Donald Trump offering Department of Health and Human Service employees $25,000. And no, there is no speed round, and Dick Clark is not involved. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Todd Allbaugh along with Mr. Aaron Zommers on the board. 34 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock. I love that theme song. Play a little bit more. This is the old $25,000 pyramid with Dick Clark. Our friend Jane McNair on Matt Nair this morning. She was listening to our other friend Pat Kreitlow talk about, I guess today is the founding of Batman, the old TV show. And so Jane and Greg were having a lot of fun on their show, asking people, what old TV show do you miss? And for my money, some of the game shows from like the 70s and early 80s. I mean, this one in particular. Now they have it back. All right, we turn it off. But that now we have like the $100,000 or million, I don't know, a huge amount of money pyramid. And it's hosted by Michael Strahan, who does a great job, and certainly better than I could. But there was just something about Dick Clark when he hosted it back in its prime time, or it was in the mornings, but it's in its prime. Maybe it ran afternoons as well. But the $25,000 pyramid. And look, people are going to say, Todd, this is no joke. I get it. This is not a joke, the implication. But sometimes you got to have a little humor about it to grab people's attention, to show how idiotic some of these things are. I mean, who would have ever thought that we would be taking whatever metaphor you want to say, sledgehammer, chainsaw, whatever. And look, as a former Republican who worked at both the state government and the federal government, yes, of course, there are always efficiencies that can be had. There's always places you could do an audit and say, okay, these folks and this department are doing great. Over here, we have a department that might not be serving the original purpose anymore, or nobody asked what they were really doing. Or does this department really need as much money as they have, or can we transfer that somewhere else in government to do a better job? Those are reasonable efficiencies, reasonable audits, reasonable reviews that I think we should be doing on government, because ultimately the government is run by our taxpayer dollars. But what I just said is not what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Through their made-up department of Doge, as I say, I like to call it Doggy, not Doge. Because it's not an official department, it's not an official agency, it was just made up. And Trump has given Elon Musk, a private citizen, purview to do whatever the hell he wants. And the Republicans in Congress have done little to stymie this. So last Friday, all employees of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services were notified of the option to voluntarily resign, that's the term they use, in exchange for a $25,000 payment, according to a source familiar with the situation who told CBS News. The department-wide email offered a, quote, voluntary separation incentive payment, unquote, the source said. Employees have been given until the 14th of March to reply to the deadline. Today is the 12th. So the end of the week. Take 25 grand and hit the road, Jack or Jill. Because you know what's coming next. And according to the story here, the offer is part of the Trump administration's effort to slash the size of the federal workforce, shrink the government's budget through mass layoffs and financial cuts. So if these poor folks don't take this $25,000 buyout and they have a job at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services under JFK Jr., likelihood is they could very well be on the chopping block and receive nothing. And this way, Musk and Trump get to say, well, they weren't fired. We gave them an option to stay if they wanted. But they chose to retire, leave for 25 grand. If I were in that position, I'd be very suspect whether you're ever going to see that 25 grand, by the way. And of course, and here we are. What time is it? It's 39 minutes past the hour, 1 o'clock. We are now fully 1 hour and coming up on 40 minutes in 3, 2, 1, bingo. We are 1 hour and 40 minutes into the show. And I am just now getting to tell you that overnight, Donald Trump effectively has brought the U.S. Department of Education to its knees. In a memo put out to employees, giving them a day's notice, said you had to be out of the building for the U.S. Department of Education by 6 p.m. last night. And overnight, half of the workforce, 1,200 people plus in the U.S. Department of Education, were told they're gone. And again, to reiterate, this isn't about, hey, could we do a review, an audit, and find efficiencies? That's not what this is about. This is about someone from outside of government, fine, but with no experience in knowledge of government, not fine, making mass cuts to federal employees with no regard for their personal life, not fine, and even greater still, no regard for what these agencies do for Americans across the country, not fine. And instead of doing it with a scalpel, they're using a chainsaw. We saw these guys cut, and fire the people in charge of the nuclear weapons, then tried to hire them back, remember, and couldn't find because they didn't have their personal email, so it took them forever to track some of these people down. I don't think some of them still didn't come back. And what's worse, if it could get any worse, is the fact that Trump and Musk are doing this under the auspices of, hey, we're going to save Americans money. But this is how they're going to fund their $2 trillion plus tax break for billionaires. It's a huge grift for billionaires. And the most tragic part is many of the supporters of Trump who voted on good faith and said, look, the guy might not be my cup of tea. He says some crazy things. He disappoints me in his words and even some of his actions. But you know what? My family's hurting. And he at least is telling me he's going to help my family and bring down the price of my heating bill and give me more money so I can buy my kids boots. And maybe I can afford to buy a pair of eyeglasses for myself and my kids, not from some fancy place, but from Walmart or Shopko, the eyeglass place that's still left. And so in good faith, folks voted for that. And that ain't what they're getting. What they're getting back is a political middle finger. As prices continue to soar, the economy continues to go down. We're staring a recession straight in the face. And Donald Trump does not care. Because at the end of the day, this was one big grift. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Jack, listening in Merrimack. Jack, thanks for calling in. What say you?
Yeah, this is, I think you pointed this out too. It's a lot of this is just distraction and misdirection. Doge incompetently and unlawfully firing civil servants. I read about this, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I've read that when the Agency for International Development refused to flat out follow orders, a private security firm, not real law enforcement, was hired to break into their offices and enforce the illegal orders.
There were reports of that, yes.
Yeah, I seem to recall something like this happened to another president who ordered an illegal break-in, and he was forced out of office. Unfortunately, this is probably not going to happen to this guy. Yeah. But as you say, this is all distraction. They want to take Social Security and Medicare and cut them to pay trillions in tax welfare to the richest and grossly rich corporations. They want to, oh, by the way, they also want to take the trust funds for these, which are not part of the national debt or deficit, by the way. By law, they're not. And they want to basically throw them onto the Wall Street casino. And of course, that'll boost the stock market, which is owned, of course, mostly by the rich. I think it's even worse than this, though. When people figure this out, they're not going to be happy. I recall reading, maybe going back as far as the Reagan administration.
Yeah.
If Republicans enacted their whole agenda, there'd never be another Republican administration voted into office. So what are the MAGAs going to do about it?
But even you bring Jack, you'll I mean you like me are old enough to remember Reagan and being in office and everything. I agree with everything you just said. But even today's so-called Republicans, which are MAGA folks, Trump people, they don't even follow what Reagan said. Even Ronald Reagan said, look, if you cut Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare, that's going to do nothing for the deficit. Even Reagan got that and worked with Tip O'Neill to help stabilize and save Social Security for a time. And it's just ironic to me as a former Republican that today's people who want to use that title and moniker don't even go along with Ronald Reagan.
Well, yeah, that's not terribly surprising. They've got Project 2025 to work with. How are the MAGAs going to get back into office? I mean, there's constant elections and referenda and voter exhaustion, so that's a form of voter suppression. And I'm sure that, like with the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, they're going to throw millions into state races and even more billions into federal legislative races.
Right.
But I think they've got further plans. If that doesn't work, there's severe voter suppression. The Republicans even bragged about doing that in Wisconsin, remember?
Right.
This one is called the SAVE Act, as in Suppress All Voter Eligibility Act.
Yep.
I don't think that's really what it's supposed to stand for. If that isn't even enough, if they see by the polls that's enough, and they're still afraid they might lose, what are they going to do?
Thanks,
you think
Jack.
they're going to allow a legitimate election result?
Right. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate it. No, we've talked about this program before that, the 2026 elections, we have to be vigilant to make sure that they do continue. Up until this point, our elections have been free and fair. But the 2026 election, we have to be vigilant on this to make sure that it continues. 855-752-4842. Gene, listening on WCFW. I got tongue-tied there for a second, but Gene never is. Gene in Eau Claire, thanks for calling in. What say you, Gene?
Hi. I think we need to look at this at a very serious perspective, and that is people who have been abused. They've been ridiculed. They've been put down. Their friends have been broken up. And they give up. And I watched Zelensky as Trump went after him, and abusive behaviors by him and the VP and others, and the people that are left, the MAGAs, who have histories of abusive personalities. People need to stand up against abuse. People were lied to, and they were lied to by various factions. But we need to come together and say, we're not going to take this abuse, because this is abusive personality. They are going to hit you from every angle. Go after the farmers, go after the healthcare professionals, go after everybody. So we need to unite and fight back against abuse. Thank you.
Thanks, Gene. Always appreciate the call. Have a great day up there in beautiful Eau Claire on WCFW. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Brought up Project 2025. I've been wanting to get to this for some time, and thank goodness it was brought up. We're tracking Project 2025. It was all made up, they said. It's not real. Well, we'll check the tracker. How are they doing on it when we come back? It's the Allbaugh Show for a Wednesday on the Civic Media Radio Network. That's fantastic.
Great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
Blind Shot Social Club, a perfect blend of cool, casual dining, indoor golf with space for events, craft cocktails, and non-alcoholic drinks too. A hidden gem on Madison's east
If you have
side.
time,
Blind Shot
can you
Social
dial
Club,
up
open to everyone. Blind Shot
Google and
Social
have it say
Still putting off that deep clean? Let H.S.
back?
Prestige
It's
Clean
a
take
show
it off
called
your to-do
Backtracking.
list. With
It
over
goes
12 years of meticulous
Backtracking.
cleaning experience, they make your home
I
sparkle
want to use that
without the
stinger,
hassle.
that
Call
whatever. But if you can't,
920-932-0000
RCO used to have
today.
it.
Why wait?
This is Chad Spade
A
for
radio
Chad's
show?
Design
Yeah.
Build. We're proud to employ some of the best carpenters and remodeling professionals in our
They're
industry. Are you honest and
Backtracking.
hardworking? Do
Backtracking
you
was the
love
name
to
of the show.
improve
It was like
people's
a
lives by
look back at
improving
music
their
history or
homes?
something
Chad's
like
Design
that.
Build offers excellent compensation and benefits focused on outstanding customer service, professional design, construction management, and craftsmanship, all in a nurturing, positive workplace. Whether you're thinking about remodeling your home or considering joining our team, go to chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more.
I'm Dan Schaefer. Let's recombobulate. Folks, we've got to talk about Derek Van Orden. The second-term
We gotta
congressman
talk.
representing Wisconsin's 3rd District is at it again, dodging public meetings and making all kinds of unhinged comments. As many scramble and struggle to understand the chaos of what's happening in Washington, D.C. and how it's impacting people
I don't think I'll be
here
able
in
to find it.
Wisconsin,
That's
Van
fine.
Orden has been as frustrating and
It's
disrespectful
an obscure
as ever.
reference.
In one instance, Van Orden took to social media to berate a veteran who had been fired from his job at the VA by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. And the veteran in question is simply someone who was just reaching out to his congressman, looking for answers. Van Orden's office has also hastily canceled public meetings, and he has made some especially wild accusations about people who have been attending these public events. Congressman Van Orden needs to stop this unhinged madness, and more importantly,
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is now 9 before the hour of 2 o'clock. At the top of the hour. Can we start saying that? St. Patty's Day isn't too far away.
Top of the hour.
Top of the hour to you. At the top of the hour at 2 o'clock, CBS with Patio Cinnamon, or ABC News, depending upon which of our great stations you listen to, comes your way, followed by a check of weather. It is beautiful out there, although they're saying by Friday, they're saying 70 degrees by Friday. But parts of the state, particularly the west and southwest, south central areas of the state, maybe closer to the Illinois line, those are susceptible to some possible, keyword possible, severe weather as the front moves through. And then by Sunday, it's going to be like 40. So, as they say, if you don't like the weather in Wisconsin, wait 5 minutes, it'll change.
Yeah,
But
really.
get out there. Today is a beautiful day in the 50s, no wind, and 70s by Friday. Get out there and enjoy that. And then our great sports reporter, Mike Clemens, who is keeping track of all the NFL trades, or the deadline approach there. Also the Bucks, he'll update us on sports, followed by Maggie Dawn every afternoon from 2 until 4, Dominic Salvia from 4 until 6, and then it is Pete Schwaba from 6 until 8, although in that 5 to 7 block tonight, join Dan Schaefer, Pat Kreitlow, and myself for a special forum and panel as we discuss the implications, the things that are up for grabs in this very important state Supreme Court race coming up on April 1st. That special broadcast is from 5 until 7 this afternoon and into the evening. Looking forward to that. And then the big Supreme Court debate is coming up tonight. Again, Civic does not have the rights to carry that, but you can find it, as they say, in your local listings. Let's go quickly to the phone lines, 855-752-4842, up to beautiful Appleton, Wisconsin. Cam, listening in Appleton. Cam, thanks for calling in. What do you have?
Good afternoon, guys. Todd, I actually have a question for you that I'm going to propose. Now, you and maybe common listeners know my stance on what I think happened to the election with it being hacked based off of the evidence from each of the states. I'm going to propose to you the question that based off of everything that we know so far, where all the safeguards have failed us in regards to keeping people from dismantling our government as they have been, what would have stopped them from breaking those safeguards as well to prevent any of the election hacking being reported? Because we're seeing that in Nevada right now, where they're denying any audit requests for the election.
So I was looking at Pete Schwab is here in the studio here and making faces at me. So I was laughing at Pete, not you. I appreciate the question, Cam. Yes, you and I simply disagree on past elections being rigged. I feel there's not just I feel it's been proven fact that both the 2020 and 2024 elections were legitimate and fair. Yes, there were minor discrepancies, but nothing to the extent where any of the election results could have been changed. I think the difference between, to answer your question directly, between November 2024 and now moving into 2026 is, to your point, we have completely different people in charge. I'm not just talking Republican versus Democrat. You're talking about the fact that the Trump-Musk team are dismissing a lot of people who were keeping the safeguards in place. So that's what concerns me the most, is having the safeguards removed. And I'm not here to tell you that I think the 2026 elections are going to be rigged or not accurate at this point. I'm saying we have to remain vigilant because we are going through unprecedented times right now in the federal government, with safeguards being literally just taken out. And so we have to remain vigilant that the 2026 midterm elections are as accurate and fair and administered that way as 2020 and 2024. I want to get to this quickly because this is going to be a new segment Zomers and I are going to be working on. Project 2025. A tracker, because we heard a lot of talk about Project 2025. We spend time on this. Our colleagues here at Civic spend time on this, and a lot of people said, "Well, that was just made up. It's from the Heritage Foundation. There's no connection." Well, now again, we know there is. There's a site called project2025.observer. Project2025.observer. Who is keeping track of Project 2025, and we are going to start bringing you Project 2025 tracker updates. Of the 300 items listed in Project 2025 and over 90 pages, 92 of them have already been accomplished. And we're not even a full 2 months in, my friends. Another 45 are in progress. The Heritage Foundation and Donald Trump and Elon Musk have already completed 38% of what was listed in Project 2025. By agency, U.S. Agency for International Development, 100% done. They killed it. In the Department of State, of the 9 objectives listed, 89% are done. In the White House, 12% of Project 2025 objectives, 88% are done. Department of Justice, they've done 18 of the objectives, 58% overall is done at Department of Justice, so still almost half to go. And in personal objectives, they've done 6. They're a little over halfway there at 58%. This is what I'm talking about, is that during elections, people can say a lot of stuff. People can say, well, that's not true, but the tell is in what they do. And so we're going to start tracking this. I'm not sure every day, Zomers, but we'll do it on a continual basis, Project 2025. Breaking news, Environmental Protection Agency Minister Lee Zeldin says, quote, "Today is going to be the most consequential day of deregulation in United States history. Stay tuned and buckle up," unquote. Breaking news by the minute these days. Many thanks to Trigby Olson, Pat Kreitlow, Chico, Zomers, and all of you. Whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum. We'll see you at 5 o'clock right back here. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you.
Adios.
Have a great day. Adios.